Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Cheat Code Jiu-Jitsu. Jeff here again. We're going to work on another break to get ourselves out of the horrible, awful lockdown position for those dastardly 10th planet half guard players who love pulling people into the lockdown and all the dangerous moves that exist there. Today's move that we're going to discuss, I've heard it called by a few different names. I actually learned it a long time ago, but didn't really have a name for it. And then recently heard somebody refer to it as the Lockpick. I think it was actually Eric Paulson, if I remember correctly. Love that name, works very well. It's a great way to pick your way out of the lockdown. We're not going to get completely out of half guard with this one, but it's going to get us out of the lockdown position and into a chair sit with our trapped leg, which will get me into a far more dominant half guard position as the guy on top, and I'll be able to go to work from there. So lockpick is one of my favorite ways to get through, and I get into a place where I can kind of set up a lot of chokes or leg locks and passes and everything else. We're going to start working some of that stuff in a future video, but for today's purposes, the lockpick is going to get us out of the lockdown. All right, so I'm trying as best I can here to intentionally leave some room so you can see what's going on, but let me run through the lockpick once so you see what's going to happen. I'm here, the mirror's got locked down. I'm going to be taking my outside leg, fishing for this leg, elevating, chair sitting, and then coming through. Specifics on the mechanics of what I'm doing here. One of the biggest problems that I see when people try to use this particular escape is they treat it like the log splitter in our last video. And by that I mean they get here into lockdown, and then they start fishing with their outside leg. They find this leg, which is Demir's left leg that he's got wrapped around and underneath here. And then what they're trying to do is they're basically trying to mule kick this down to break the lockdown apart. Now I'll tell you, if you're way bigger than the guy who's doing lockdown to you, lots more powerful, and or you're just a lot more experienced and they're not very good at lockdown, you may well be able to just kick that down and the lockdown fall apart. Great, good for you. That's not really a high percentage way to get out of lockdown. Rather than doing that, what I actually want to do is when I reach back and I find this foot, wherever it is, I'm trying to take this knee, drop it down on the ground, and then I am lifting and elevating this up. The reason I'm doing that is because, as you can see right now, there's not any room in between Demir's legs and the floor. And what I really want to do is I want to pop my foot out and I want to chair sit underneath of his legs. I can't do that when there's no room down here. So by elevating all of this up off the ground, I'm creating space underneath in between his legs and the floor. That will give me the room that I need to chair sit out of this. So here, foot comes back, I find that, plant the knee, elevate. Once this is elevated, I'll show you what I'm doing with my other foot in a minute. Comes out, drops to the floor, and then I chair sit it up underneath. From here, I'm then sitting on top of his knee. Now, as you can see, where my chair sit is at, Demir's knee is here, my foot is above it. We've talked about this in a few other videos. I do not want to chair sit here because it's not as painful for him. It's not as dominant of a position for me. And it leaves open some openings where if he's really good at pulling people back into lockdown, he can get that back more easily. I want to chair sit this up hard and then sit directly on his knee. From here, I generally like to maintain a half guard position that's pretty low down his body. Part of that's because I'm so short myself, so it's better for me. But I like hanging out down here and either single chair sitting on the knee, staying low, and then I can attack the arm. I can do whatever it is that I'm doing from up here with a far side underhook, if I can possibly get it. Or I double chair sit, same type of a thing, stay inside, but I'm always wanting to stay low. So note on getting your foot up to chair sit. The lockdown is a really tight clamp on my legs that is going to put pressure in a lot of different places. There are a couple of ways that the lockdown does not put good pressure on the guy on top. One of them is, unless Demir's outside leg that he's got passing over here is on my calf, and down on my Achilles, there's not really any good pressure stopping me from doing a hamstring curl. So I can generally, whenever I want, unless he's down properly on my calf, like I've showed in some of my lockdown videos, I can hamstring curl pretty much whenever I want. The other direction is towards the camera, so away from his body. So I can, most of the time with a fair bit of regularity, pull this up and kick it out. Now the problem is, if I haven't done anything else to his legs, as I showed in my lockdown series, all he's got to do is just use his toes, fish my ankle back out, and now we're right back down into lockdown. But this is the movement that I'm doing with my trapped leg, is a little bit of a hamstring curl, kicking it out, and then once my foot hits the ground, that's when I'm going to start chair sitting under. This works, and I can do it without Demir being able to fish my legs back out, because what I should have going on, if I've done the lockpick correctly, is rather than having everything flat on the ground, his legs are going to be elevated up off of the ground. So when my foot hits the ground, everything just slides underneath of his lockdown. So from this angle, he's got lockdown. Obviously our upper bodies wouldn't be like this, just for camera purposes. So he's got that. I'm going to pick, lift, elevate, drop, and chair sit. And then I go back. Stays away from the camera. And then from this angle, from behind the free leg, I'm looking for that inside foot. All of that gets elevated up. Hamstring curl, kick out, chair sit, and then sit back on the track foot. From that style of half guard, that chair sitting half guard, I've got a lot of attacks from there that I like to do. That's where I set most of my chokes and most of my leg locks up from half guard. And then there's a whole series of passes we can do. We're not going to cover those right now, because if you come back next time, we're going to talk about a series of passes that are going to lead directly into reverse half guard. And that is going to be the next series that we're going to cover after that. But we are going to come back and cover chair sit half guard as well, so we can start working on the chokes and the leg entries and the passes and everything else from there. But lockpick has been one of my favorite ways to get out of the lockdown for a long time. If you're really good at it, it's an excellent way to just shut the lockdown down completely and get yourself to a much more dominant position in terms of half guard, where you have more control and you have more options available. So play with that if you don't already. If you do play with it, drop me a comment down below. Let me know if there's other ways that you like to do it. I know other people do it a little bit differently than I do. Let me know how you like to play with it. One way or another, if you got something out of this video, make sure you hit that like button. And it really helps us out a lot to spread the channel to more people. And also make sure that you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. You'll get a notification every time we upload a new video. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks.